Hi, it's the M.L.M for the Soul channel, and I do have a new topic for today. Before I begin, I just would like to say, may the words and expressions of my mouth and the thoughts and meditations of my heart find favor and acceptance for you, Hashem, and the people I thank have inspired me. Hope they can inspire you as well. We'll have links below this video to their sites. They are Rabbi Shalom Arush, Rabbi Lazer Brody, Rabbi Yosef Mizrahi, Rabbi Eli Mansour, Rabbi Alon Anava, Rabbi Yuval Ovadia, Rav Daniel Asore, Nisan Baruch Black, David Sachs, Rabbi Michael Skobach, Jews for Judaism, Rabbi David Asher, and Rabbi Yaron Reuven. As well, if you never checked out this channel before, I will have a link right below this video to my first video, which explains what M.L.M for the Soul means, what it stands for, and what I'm doing. So today's video topic is called Protect Others from Harm and Being Heard. So this is taken from an email I received. It's called A Portion of Kindness by Rosalie Saltzman, and she always has really interesting topics about the parasha. And this actually is going to be related to the one that is coming up. So that's really good because it has to do with Shabbos Shira as well. So she starts off with the pasuk in Shmos. The angel of Hashem, who had been going in front of the camp of Israel, moved and went behind them. And the pillar of cloud moved from in front of them and went behind them. It came between the camp of Egypt and the camp of Israel. So while over 2 million people spent the night crossing between the walls of the Sea of Reeds, Hashem kept the Egyptians away with a pillar of cloud and a pillar of fire. In the end, Hashem killed the Egyptian army, but why wait all night? He could have killed them when they arrived or while the nation was crossing the sea, right? That makes sense. So this instance shows us another example of Hashem's chesed, his kindness. Besides giving the Egyptians every chance to escape death at the last minute, he was also bestowing divine protection on his people. Hashem put the 2 pillars between the 2 camps, keeping the evil bent Egyptians away from the Jews. We have an obligation to protect others from harm. We can do this by giving advice, by offering warnings, or by physically standing between another person and danger. While we are not supposed to unnecessarily risk our lives to save another person, according to the Mishnah, we are, if possible, meant to stand up for others who are too weak and vulnerable to stand up for themselves. Meaning, if someone, let's say makes fun of somebody or does something that you don't think is right, if you can do that, then that would be a good thing to do. We can do this whenever we observe a bully threatening a younger child, a child hurting an animal, an elderly person being threatened, a person in danger of being exploited or cheated, or anyone in danger. Nowadays, we do a lot of protecting of ourselves through bureaucracy. Many times we have to spend hours and days in lines in public offices trying to straighten out red tape that is costing us money or infringing on our rights in some way. Many people can benefit from someone wiser or more articulate or with more legal savvy to help them deal with bureaucracy. So there are many organizations around whose sole purpose is to help protect the rights of those who may not be in a position to protect themselves. Volunteering or donating money to one of these will help afford these people the protection they may be lacking and to help keep undesirables at a distance. So if you can't do something by you donating to these places, that also is a way of helping. So the next pasuk from Shmos, Hashem spoke to Moshe, saying, I have heard the complaints of the children of Israel. Speak to them, saying, in the afternoon you shall eat meat, in the morning you shall be sated with bread. So besides the obvious chesed of supplying bread and meat in the desert for the entire nation for 40 years, Hashem did something more. He heard the complaints of the people. That's what it says. He specifically heard them. How often do you feel heard how often do we feel heard when we voice our complaints, whether to get some empathy, help, or cooperation? How often do we express our dissatisfaction only to see no improvements in our lives? Right? Sometimes complaining doesn't help. Most of the time it doesn't. Whether we complain to friends, neighbors, siblings, bosses, employees, service people, or bureaucrats, they too often turn a deaf ear. Besides not providing a solution to the cause of our complaint, they do a worse disservice. They don't listen to the complaint in the first place or take it serious enough, meaning they shrug it off or their mind is elsewhere, right? Being heard, receiving empathy, and understanding is vital for people's sense of self-esteem and peace of mind. More often than not, we are willing to accept things that are unpleasant as long as we feel listened to and that our complaints have been given priority, meaning sometimes just listening makes the person feel better, even though it might not help the actual situation, but it's just that they're being heard. Hashem not only heard the complaints of his people, he listened to them and answered them. If we can't always answer people's needs, the least we can do is hear them out. People need to be heard. Needs to be heard is also a need for sustenance. So this parasha that I said is coming up, when you listen to this, it'll be coming up the next week, is part of Shabbos Shira. Birds have figured prominently in our long tradition since the 5th day of creation. The dove has been the sign of peace since it brought the good tidings to Noah that the land had sprouted with olive branches. The birds were quiet when the Torah was given, and they didn't eat the manna in the desert either, except when Datan and Aviram tried to make it look like manna fell on Shabbos. I mean, Hashem made the miracle that the bird, they try to make it look that way, and then the birds ate them up. The quail flew in without quailing to feed the multitudes for 40 years. Crows brought food to Eliyahu Hanavi, and Shlomo HaMelech kept peacocks around the palace. The turtle dove proclaims spring with its song, Hashem delivered us on the wings of eagles, and the phoenix continues to rise up from the ashes, much like the Jewish people. So birds play a prominent role. So feeding the birds on Shabbat Shir is certainly a lesson in Kal V'Chomer. So meaning if we are to show gratitude to the great-great-grandchicks, I like that, of the birds who perched silently at Sinai, certainly we are meant to reward and remember greater acts of kindness done by those higher up on the food chain. Besides being a lesson in gratitude, feeding the birds is meant to teach us kindness. Shabbat Shir falls in the winter, which in most countries the birds are very grateful for any crumbs they get. In the same way that the birds of this generation are recipients of kindness due to their ancestors' actions, acts of kindness to animals as well as people have flowed down to people in general, and we learn to show respect and kindness to all Hashem's creatures. So remembering an act of kindness, whether it was done 3 millennia ago or 3 decades ago, and commemorating it by doing more acts of kindness epitomizes the Jewish nation, is what Hashem expects of us. As we remember this on Shabbat Shir by feeding the birds, and maybe a guest or two, the angels as well as the birds will be flapping their wings in celebration. So when we provide for Hashem's creatures, we emulate Hashem. So there's a story that goes like this. One morning after davening, when Rav Elia returned to our hut for breakfast, I don't know who he's talking about, but wherever he was, he noticed the cat scratching at the screen door. When I explained to him how the cat had entered our lives and the purpose it had been serving, meaning getting rid of the mice, he asked me if I had fed it. I explained that the cat took care of itself and that most likely it was eating the mice. But according to your theory, countered Rav Elia, if there is a cat in the vicinity, there are no more mice. The poor cat must be starving. Come with me. I'll show you what you must do. So Rav Elia poured a saucer full of milk, brought it outside, and bent over with it to feed the cat. Ordinarily, we would walk to the base medrash along the straightest, most direct route. On one occasion, however, Rav Elia led us on a lengthy roundabout detour. I asked him the purpose of this divergent route. Can't you see? There is a long line of ants there. We mustn't tread on the creations of Hashem. Imagine, even that he was so careful to do that he chose different routes. So it just shows you how that kindness is, and protecting them from harm as well. That's another way to show that. And I hope and pray that we will all learn to emulate Hashem's ways and protect others and listen to them, that they should be heard, and that we will all merit to live and see the coming of Mashiach speedily in our days and the rebuilding of our final and everlasting base. Amen, and thanks for watching.